Growing your business can mean big-time logistical questions, like how are we going to keep up with all these local deliveries? Let Uber Direct offer you a helping hand. With Uber Direct, you take orders on your website, app, or by phone. Then drivers who are part of Uber's courier network pick them up from your store and deliver them to your customer's doorstep. Sounds simple, right? Uber Direct helps you give your customers what they want when they want it. Offer them delivery options in under 2 hours, on the same day, or scheduled up to 30 days in advance. Plus, share real-time tracking and ETAs by text. You can keep growing your business at a price that works for you. Never pay commission or hidden charges. Just pay a fixed fee per delivery. Delivery just got better with Uber Direct. Learn more at uberdirect.com.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit a million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
Hello, everyone. Once again, welcome to another episode of Second and Saints. John Hendricks alongside Ross Jackson. Ross, it's been a couple days since we've talked, like on here at least, but obviously we got cut up at the facility and stuff. How's things going for you, man?
Wonderful. It's always a tough day, cut day. There's absolutely no doubt about that. On the other side of it, though, you come out ready to go for, the regular season and all this other stuff. So it's a bittersweet kind of moment because you're that much closer to week one. But of course, obviously, a lot of people were dreaming and, trying to make good on their families and all these other things. So it's a little tough, but tough to navigate, but definitely bittersweet. How you holding up?
I'm good, man. Yeah, it's just the reality of the business. And I think that's the biggest thing is that, and I think we live by this creed too, but at the end of the day, these players are human beings. They've got families and all this other stuff. And so it's like, it's exciting, but on the other hand, it's hard because you see these guys and look, Dennis Allen said as much, but look, we saw all these guys from rookie minicamp to OTAs to minicamp to training camp to preseason. Like, he's valid in saying these guys put in their all. And it's unfortunate because certain things hurt certain players throughout this, but it is a business. And I get it. Like almost 1,200 players get cut and then only like 43% of them are being brought back from the math I did. So it's not a lot, but yeah, you just feel for them. And that's just the reality of the NFL and how hard it is to make an impact. And we saw some really interesting Saints moves today. I guess what we could do, man, is let's just run it down kind of some of the positions and then kind of see where we fall on some of this stuff. But and I think the easiest one is quarterback, right? I mean, everybody and their mama knew what quarterback was. Now it's interesting because Dennis Allen didn't say anything about who's this backup, right? Like he's not tipping his hand. Who's the backup? Who's the left guard? Who's the starting safety alongside Tyrann Mathieu? Like none of that information is made available, but we do know they're competing and they're going to get snaps and develop throughout the season. Were you surprised by that? Are you surprised that nobody's actually been named QB2, or is it something that really just doesn't matter too much right now?
I would have been more surprised if he would have outright said, "Here's who my QB2 is." You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think that's a next week thing. And like if I was a coach, like I would want to stand, 10 toes strong and say, this is the backup quarterback. I'd want to do that. But I'm not going to do that during bonus week. Like, this is another week for competition for those guys. I'm not going to give that away right now. I want them both to feel like they're still very much in this thing, both to feel like they're very much still being considered for that role. And so I'm not worried about giving that away at the moment. I'm not worried about protecting anybody's feelings. I'm not worried about anybody's ego, anything like that. I don't care about that. This is football. We're all here to win games. And if we can't win games, you got to go. Like, very simple. But it's not a feelings game for me. It's you got to stand 10 toes strong and 10 toes down and say, this is going to be our guy, and give that person that confidence of knowing that they're that guy. But I'll do that next week. I wouldn't be worried about doing that right now.
Yeah. And look, you brought up bonus week. Like, they're going to have a couple of practices here. It's not training camp, but they're gearing up to week 1, and some of that stuff is going to work itself out. And, it's just, there's just a reality, and I'm not too worried about it right now. And I think it's one of those things where I don't think anybody else should be worried about it right now either. I mean, like, I get it that it's important, but is it really? Like, I mean, Carr's your starter, ideally, and we're only talking about in the event something happens to him, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ideally, these guys never see the field.
Yeah. That's regardless
of who it is.
Yeah, that is absolutely the point, is none of them should see the field. And look, I think we've talked about this before. I know we've talked about this, but check out past episodes, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But we felt our comfort level with both of these quarterbacks, and I still feel the same comfort. I don't know that we should get wrapped up in this guy's number 2, but I guess I could say that, Haener had been steady throughout training camp. He had some moments here and there, but Rattler's obviously brought the more flashy moments, right? I think that's kind of where we're at this point. And I think that's kind of where everybody's leaning to at this point. And I get it. I understand. But at the same time, that's I think a next week problem. And still, I guess my other question would be, regardless of who is the backup, do you still expect them to dress all 3 quarterbacks on game day?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. That's really tough because of the Taysom factor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Taysom wasn't a part of the conversation. I would say yes, but there's a good chance that you don't have to do that, right? Because you could end up having that guy be inactive and then have them as your emergency third quarterback if you wanted to. So there's a good chance that ends up being the case. Yeah, I would say probably. I mean, typically that's what we've seen for New Orleans, right? Like, they've always had 3 quarterbacks dressed on game day and everything like that. Like, there haven't been too many examples of that. There was the one time, I think, that we saw Jake Haener inactive and he was designated as the emergency third quarterback. But for the most part, they've dressed 3 plus Taysom. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that again this year.
Yeah, and if you're sticking with what's been said, if you want to develop these quarterbacks, you do put them active on game day so they can get acclimated, learn the offense more, see how it is to operation with Clint Kubiak, with Andrew Janocko. Like, I'm in favor of that. Like, I know it's probably like, oh, it's a wasted roster spot or anything like that. But to me, if they're saying, I want to develop these guys, I want to do all this stuff, which, again, I brought this up on a radio interview yesterday, but what a boat to be in, because Rattler and Haener, the first draft picks that have worked out for the Saints, and I don't know in ever, right? Like, it's been a struggle bus, but I think that's also the big takeaway, is that they kind of have found some good quarterbacks here to develop and to mold a little bit. And, one could be a future starter with a lot of upside. One could just be a stable starter. I mean, that's yet to be determined, but that's not something we have to deal with now. That's not a today problem.
Yep. Exactly right.
Yeah. So that's quarterback. That's super simple. Running back. Now, I don't know who you picked offhand. We don't. It's not totally relevant, but I know I got all these guys right. I didn't put Kendre Miller on my list because of the IR thing. Like, I just didn't feel comfortable with that. And lo and behold, they used the new rule to put Kendre Miller on. But Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, who we knew was going to be on this team, despite everybody talking about that and saying that a long time ago. And then Jordan Mims makes it, who we've talked about I don't know how many times. Ross, I just realized this is our 50th episode together too.
Oh shoot.
How
about
like
that?
Already? Yeah, it's already, but sorry not to detract. And then they kept the fullback, they kept Adam Prentice. One guy that we thought maybe they could use for accounting purposes. But your overall assessment, because they did leave off Jacob Kabodi, he had the great preseason game, but why was he not included in the 53? And why should fans kind of not be so upset about that?
Yeah, I think you have an opportunity to get him over to the practice squad. It's unlikely that he's going to be picked up off of waivers, because remember, picking somebody off of waivers means adding them to your active roster, not not just adding them to the practice squad or something like that. So I could see him coming back to New Orleans, coming back to Louisiana. It was his dream to be part of the New Orleans Saints. That would be his avenue to do that. And so that's what I would expect. I think that the big reason why he probably didn't make the roster, it comes down to like one game doesn't tell the whole story, right? And so it's just about continuing to develop him. Clearly, he is able to be taught. He is able to be developed. He is coachable. He's all those things. And so you just want to continue to kind of lean into that and continue to develop that out of him. So that's what I would imagine would be the value of getting him on the practice squad.
Yeah. And I mean, from what I was told, that they may not necessarily carry a running back early on because they're dealing with some injuries at different positions. And so this could be a thing where maybe it's not immediate, but I think leading up to week 1, they might try to add somebody to the room. And I think that could be a Jacob Capote. I know that they want to try to put him back on the practice squad. Nothing against James Robinson, but Robinson has a little bit different outlook. Probably he can go to a different team and such, but man, how about Jordan Mims, the guy we've been on forever and a day and have talked about? Man, just it's nice to see a guy like that get rewarded. I mean, we've pointed this out early in this off season that he was at rookie minicamp. He came in, was a sponge, and again, we talked about him last year plenty when he came in. Like again, the interest that he drew after the Bills let him go. I mean, definition of a guy who did the work, does all the work. He can pass, he can catch in the passing game, run the ball, and he can play on special teams, and he returns the ball. So good sign for Jordan Mims, man.
Yeah, it's great, and it's well deserved. I mean, the dude has busted his butt the entire time that he's been here, and kind of checked all the boxes in terms of what we're told by teams that they look for, what we're told by coaches that they look for, all those other things. So he had how do I want to say this? He had the production throughout camp and throughout the preseason and all those other things. But on top of that, and in addition to that, he also had a lot of opportunity to kind of show what he was doing behind the scenes. Always having his face in the playbook, always working on things, always kind of, getting that stuff done too, and showing that work ethic. I think that was a big piece of what kind of endeared him to New Orleans. And he showed you too what he can do as a blocker, which I think was massive for this team too, in terms of like their decision making to bring him on. So he just kind of checked all the boxes, man, and that's what happens. You get rewarded for that.
Yeah, and I love it. I mean, again, he's a great story, and he's not satisfied. Like he's going to keep working and stuff. Now he's made it. Now it's time to put in more work. And I think that's one of the big takeaways, I think, from talking to some of the players on Tuesday, just that, now the real work it's week 1. It's time. It's ready to kind of move forward. And so I'm excited to see. And again, it could be a situation where, a lot's going to change because this is the initial roster. I don't see that happening with the Jordan Mims. But the other thing is, we talked about this too. We didn't think they were going to totally move on from Kendre Miller, but putting him on IR and giving him a chance at least. If he comes back to the mix, I don't know if they say, let's just, take Mims out of the equation. But Kendre Miller has a long way to go until he hits the field, until he probably gets the coach's trust too.
Yeah. Because it's not just about when are you healed from your injury. You got to get back into football shape, right? Like there's all of that kind of stuff to where he didn't get the opportunity to get into football shape during training camp because he was sidelined during all of training camp and all these other things. So I think that's got to be a big factor for him. I had him ending up on the 53. I had him ending up on the IR because of this new mechanism of the ability to be able to put somebody on IR right at the beginning of roster cuts and all that. It just made sense for him. So I'm glad that they're going to give him another chance. He's talented. He deserves another chance, but we got to be real. It might be his last chance.
Yeah, it just may be, I mean, that's the reality of it all. We'll see. Wide receiver, again, not too many surprises. I mean, I know I picked A.T. Perry to be on it. Of course, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, but A.T. Perry gets in. Cedric Wilson Jr., we've been kind of in his camp, in his corner for a while now. Like that's not new information, but 5 and 6, we were kind of torn there. Like we didn't know if they're going to keep 6 and they don't keep Equanimeous St. Brown, which I can see why not necessarily, but they kept Mason Tipton, a guy who's been injured, And now they keep Bub Means, the rookie. And so they're kind of getting a little bit young. Your assessment on the receiver group?
That was exactly my big takeaway for the wide receiver group. No. That was exactly my big takeaway for the wide receiver group, is that they just went ahead and got younger. And there's a lot of speed in that room. Bub Means is fast. A.T. Perry's fast. Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed are in another conversation. Whatever's above fast or that. Mason Tipton is fast. Like you have all of this speed there. And so it's interesting. And I'm curious to see how the Saints are going to utilize all that, right? I mean, you look at Miami and the way that they utilize speed on their offense all the time. It's just speed, though. Like that's all that they use. And so, how do you balance between what you saw in San Francisco for years and what you're seeing speed wise in Miami? There's some real opportunity to more accurately utilize and blend those abilities. So I'm excited about this wide receiver group. I know everybody wants to add to it. I'm okay with it.
Good question. You think?
Yeah.
Free agent wide receiver, do you think that they should look?
I mean, I guess if there's somebody of value out there, but as far as the receivers, now, to be fair, I haven't gotten the opportunity today because John and I have been swamped in Saints stuff to see, really who's been released out there. But I've seen names like Terrace Marshall, no interest. Justin Ross, no interest. Kadarius Toney, no interest. Like there's just a lot of these guys that are out there that are like available, but are they better than are they going to give you a better outlook in your system than the guys that you've been working with for the past umpteen weeks? I don't know. I don't know how I could say that. So that's the way that I look at it. Cause I don't think Terrace Marshall has panned out in the NFL at all. Like he has not had a good transition to the league. And I don't know why you would bet on that to change.
Yeah. Especially bringing somebody like that onto your active roster. I mean, maybe a practice squad and work their way up.
Maybe practice squad. Yeah.
I don't see anybody just saying, oh, let me just go get this guy and put him on the roster. It just doesn't work like that because you got to learn the playbook. He's going to be inactive. All that stuff is going to happen. So I don't know, but not too crazy at wide receiver. Again, Mason Tipton is a guy that we pointed out in OTAs that was working with the first team. He was doing a lot of things, and so they really liked them some Mason Tipton. And so he doubles as a returner too. So that kind of helps. He's got some amazing speed. I could see it being used. And so now it's just getting back from the hamstring. And I think he's getting close to being back. And so we'll keep an eye on that. Offensive line. That's an interesting one. Eight of them kept. We know the 5, right? And for all intents and purposes, we expected Lucas Patrick to win the left guard job. He wasn't playing on Sunday against the Titans. That was kind of a good indication, but Dennis Allen's not going to talk about all that good stuff. I understand, but Trevor Penning's still there. The reserves, Oli Udoh, Landon Young, and then Nick Saldiveri, who ends up making it. So no Shane Lemieux, no Kyle Hergel. Dennis Allen saying Nick Saldiveri is hopefully they get him back soon, which I don't know how confident that is on it. No Shane Lemieux, he's a veteran. I was a little bit surprised no Kyle Hergel. What about you?
That was the big surprise for me. I was surprised that they didn't keep 9 because I think you just need that many. But Dennis Allen made a good point that you have to combine not only what they have on the roster, but with practice squad and their ability to elevate and all those other things. So they try to land between, I think he said 10 to 12, John, if I remember correctly, offensive linemen combined between the two. So there is the opportunity there. Kyle Hergel was the only real surprise for me. I knew that Shane Lemieux wasn't going to make it. They tried to move him over to center for a little while. He had some of those bad snaps and things like that. That's never reflected well. Yeah. So that was tough. So if they get Saldiveri back sooner rather than later, then great. But in the meanwhile, you've got Oli Udoh, you've got Landon Young that you can turn to at every position on your offensive line with the exception of center, basically. And so that would mean that if the center goes down, what do? They got to shuffle Cesar Ruiz to center, then they got to plug somebody in at right guard and all these other things. So they're right back to the same sort of like musical chairs approach of their offensive line. But we'll see what they end up adding to their practice squad that might be able to help them out there. Cause I don't know that they really had another option outside of Lucas Patrick and Cesar Ruiz that would be able to help them at center otherwise.
Yeah. And I was told a couple of days ago that they were actively looking for a tackle, right? And so they were looking at free agency waivers.
Makes sense.
It'd be fascinating because again, this is initial 53. So just because you're on it today, which is Tuesday, doesn't mean you're going to be on it Wednesday. That's going to change. It's a very fluid situation. So it's going to be tough for some of these guys. It's like, yeah, you made the roster, but you know what I mean? That's a really hard reality of it all. But I was surprised about Kyle Hergel. That was the biggest thing for me, I guess. All right, tight end. That's quick and easy, right? Taysom Hill.
Yep.
I put him there. I guess you could put him at running back. You could put him wherever the 9 positions that he plays.
There's no wrong place to put him.
Exactly. Look, Dennis had said he was going to use him at Sam one time, so I actually think that he could do that, right? And so, but him, Foster Moreau, Juwan Johnson, and then Dallin Holker. So Holker's obviously dealing with the ankle injury right now. Now he's trending in the right direction of playing week 1, but again, it's a little bit tricky, and I don't think they're trying to trot him out. No surprises here, right?
Yeah. No, this is exactly what we thought this was going to come through. I heard like good news around Dallin Holker that the belief here is that like he should be able to go week 1 and everything. So that's great. But do you need to really rush him out there? Does he need to do too much? I don't think he has to overdo it at all, because you've got effectively 3 guys ahead of him: Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau, and then of course Taysom Hill, regardless of where he's listed. And so, this position ended up being exactly the way that we thought it was going to be since basically the undrafted free agency period closed up. Yeah,
no surprises there. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. So I don't think I have too much to add to that. Just Michael Jacobson, a tough outing, right? Like, I mean, he had the hot hand early on. Preseason, 3 penalties in the drop. I mean, that's just tough, but I think they can bring him back in the practice squad. He can continue learning and stuff. Defensive line, not really a big surprise. I mean, we picked, I think we picked the same 9, but they did add another wrinkle. They picked Kendall Vickers to be in there, a veteran guy, mainly because Colin Saunders has a calf injury, right? I think that's the biggest thing. No real surprises there. I mean, we knew that Isaiah Foskey is going to be there, Peyton Turner. I get it, how people are feeling, all this other stuff. But, special teams is another part of it, all this other stuff. I think Chase Young's going to have more reps, all this other stuff. But Vickers makes it in. He's a guy that's been around. Any other real surprises there? Or it kind of feel like what you expected?
Yeah, this is pretty much exactly what we expected, plus Kendall Vickers. And the only reason why we didn't have Kendall Vickers, I think, is because we didn't expect him to keep 10 defensive linemen, 5 and 5. But as you mentioned with the Colin Saunders injury, that changes that. You keep the extra defensive tackle and then see where things go once Colin Saunders is back and ready to go. So that's where I would expect that to maybe see some changes over the course of the first couple weeks.
Yeah, I would too. So I think they're already primed in that position.
And big opportunity for Christian Boyd ahead, the rookie in the 6th round.
Huge.
So big opportunity for him. So I'm excited to see him get
big beneficiary of no Colin Saunders. He's going to see a lot of good snaps, and he's ready to go. We talked to him. He's ready to go. I can't wait to see him play. Linebacker, a little bit more interesting there. Like, I think we both agreed on Anthony Orji making it, right? I think the only real surprise to me is Khalid Hudson not getting in, but obviously keeping Demario Davis, the Willie Gay Jr., Pete Warner, DeMarco Jackson, who's dealing with the injury as well, calf. Hopefully that's good news for him. But again, I think it's one of those injuries we have to watch out for. But no Khalid Hudson, which is a little bit surprising to me. But Anthony Orji, man, he put it out there. He did so well. We talked about him as one of the most improved in camp. Your thoughts on the linebacker room?
Yeah, they also kept Jalen Ford, the rookie that they drafted, who has been dealing with injury. That one was the one that was a little surprising to me. I thought that maybe either he could be an IR candidate or that he would be a guy that they'd move on from and then bring back to the practice squad, since it's not likely that he would get picked up on waivers. But they ended up keeping him. So maybe that means that he'll be ready sooner rather than later. I think it's interesting that they kept 2 injured linebackers and 4 healthy linebackers, but this is kind of the benefit too of not having to make your roster and then play a game the next weekend, right? This is the benefit of having the week in between. So we'll see how things go for the Saints when it comes to that.
Yeah, and keep an eye on the practice squad. A guy like Isaiah Stallbird is probably going to end up back on the practice squad, and I wouldn't be surprised if they elevate him very early on, because he should be ready from his ankle injury, and I think that's a guy that just is going to end up being back there. But, something to pay attention to. And I like Jalen Ford. I think he has a tremendous amount of upside. I don't know why I just thought about it, but thank you for the catch. So, but no, it's definitely one of those things. Corner group, the only thing I think we're surprised about, and I don't even know if we're surprised, that we thought Shamar Jean-Charles was going to be on there based on everything, but they go with Rico Payton, who's worked his tail off, is the easiest way I could say. But, why no Jean-Charles and why Payton instead of him?
Yeah, well, I think Rico Payton just kind of flashed big time when it came to his his, incredible preseason performances. I mean, 3 catches allowed on 13 targets throughout the preseason, 0 targets his final preseason game. Quarterbacks wasn't even throwing at him. And then he gets a sack in his final preseason game. It just kind of turned into a like, all right, well, everyone knows who this guy is now, so ain't no way he's getting through. So they end up, moving on from the other guy instead. I actually updated in my projection. I had the Saints, instead of keeping 6 safeties and 5 DB or 5 corners, I had them keeping 6 corners and 5 safeties. That way they could get both Shamar Jean-Charles and Rico Payton on the roster, but perhaps I was being a little bit too overzealous.
Yeah, and I think they could get Shamar back on the practice squad. That's probably an easy one to do. And it was a tough break for Rajon Wright. I mean, turf toe now he's having to deal with, but he was somebody that was right there. And I think he had a really good camp too, but it's just how it goes. But man, Rico Payton, he worked his butt off. And I tell you this, man, there was no way he was getting through waivers. I was told several teams were very, very interested in him. And if he would have hit the market, he would not be a New Orleans Saint. So I think he kind of helped make their decision a little bit easier as well. So good for him, because he's a guy that, like we talked about, kind of started a little bit slow in training camp, but then he had the Cardinals game, and then everything just went and put together, right? And then he kept having really good practices, and then he had another good game, and then he had more good practices. So it was good stuff from him, man. And he had a dislocated shoulder in between all of that he was able to come back from. So good on him. All right. Safety group, and then we got special teams, and then we're going to get out of here because we're going to have some things going on. But safety group, surprised Jonathan Abram got cut. I really am surprised there.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know. And the fact is that they think about, or the word is that they want to bring him back to practice squad. I don't think they're going to get him back in the practice squad, because I thought for sure that he would have been in the starting contender role, but maybe that's Will Harris, maybe that's Jordan Howden. What do you know?
Growing your business can mean big-time logistical questions, like how are we going to keep up with all these local deliveries? Let Uber Direct offer you a helping hand. With Uber Direct, you take orders on your website, app, or by phone. Then, drivers who are part of Uber's courier network pick them up from your store and deliver them to your customer's doorstep. Sounds simple, right? Delivery just got better with Uber Direct. Learn more at uberdirect.com.
Want a website with unmatched power, speed, and control? Try Bluehost Cloud, the new web hosting plan from Bluehost, built for WordPress creators by WordPress experts. With 100% uptime, incredible load times, and 24/7 WordPress priority support, your sites will be lightning fast with global reach. And with Bluehost Cloud, your sites can handle surges in traffic no matter how big. Plus, you automatically get daily backups and world-class security. Get started now at Bluehost.com.
Yeah, I this one's tough, man. I think if I had to pick one, I don't know that there's a wrong answer anymore, because both of these guys are versatile. Both of them are kind of like learning all these other pieces and everything. And so I think that it'll work out for the Saints one way or another. I'd love to see Jordan Howden out there, because I just think that he's talented. He's young. He has so much going for him. He's versatile. He's learning the box stuff. And so they'll have to kind of figure that stuff out. But maybe you let Tyrann Mathieu play a little bit more in the box as opposed to in the middle of the field, like he played over 60% of the time last year. And maybe that changes the way then that Jordan Howden's value is at that second safety position. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. So I could understand that. I also understand Will Harris, who has a lot of NFL experience, and don't forget, is coming from a system that is basically the New Orleans Saints, or very similar to the New Orleans Saints defensive system, right? Aaron Glenn, former secondary coach here in New Orleans, was the defensive coordinator in Detroit, has worked with Will Harris. Will Harris comes here. It's a perfect fit for him. So it could be his role. But yeah, I really thought this was going to be Abrams, and I was wrong.
Yeah. Same. I mean, I think everybody was wrong, because everybody put Jonathan Abram on their roster. So
right.
It's kind of crazy. But look, I'll say this about Will Harris, man. He had a really good camp. His football IQ is really up there. Like, I think his some of the plays he made in camp,
good point.
Diagnosing some of the blitzes, some of the things that he was able to change on a dime and make the play, I think that's going to go a long way. But, it's a tough business. I mean, just because you were here last year, obviously doesn't mean you're going to be guaranteed a spot. And we just saw that. And so that's unfortunate. Now special teams to wrap it up. Blake Grupe, we kind of knew that. And of course, Zach Wood, we can't leave out him. Change his Madden rating, for Christ's sake. And then the punter, I picked Matt Hayball. I know a lot of people pick Lou Headley, but I just had the gut feeling and all the other things that it was going to be Hayball, just because, and Dennis Allen kind of said as much consistency. We saw him doing the holding operation with Blake Grupe. Grupe had 7-7 the other day. Charlie Smith was dealing with a groin injury. So I think they made the right decision here. I don't think it was Lou Headley's punt, the last punt that he had, that sealed his fate. Like, I don't think that was the reason why they moved on from him, but your thoughts?
Yeah. I think it was more about Hayball's performance closing out training camp and then getting into the games that won him the role more than it was Lou Headley losing the role. Like, I want to give Matthew Hayball his credit there. And so that's the way that I look at it when it comes to him. The Grupe one, you're right. We figured that was going to happen. The Saints can wait now to see if Charlie Smith clears waivers. I imagine he will clear waivers because, teams are going to be banking on one kick from 37 yards in the preseason to really know like who this kid is and everything. And so I think that they made the right choice there. And Blake Grupe, you look at the preseason game, like he hit, you know what I mean? It worked. And so, see how he continues to grow and develop. Zach Wood is the safest man on the roster, as far as I'm concerned, maybe the safest man not named Chris Olave on the roster. And so just all about it in terms of what they did here. The decision that they made to go with Hayball is probably the decision that like I would have made if I were general manager Ross. But I didn't expect them to do it. I didn't think that they would do it. And so here they are again for a second year in a row, rolling with a rookie punter. Rookie punter.
I mean, ever since Thomas Morstead, this is their fourth punter now. I mean, after Morstead left, and I mean, it's crazy, but this is also NFL means not for long. I mean, that's just part of the business as well. So I hate to be as cliche for that. And so, that's kind of your roster breakdown. And again, I think of all of them, Abram and Hergel might be the two biggest shockers for me. Kendre Miller going to IR, that's not shocking. But at the same time, we're going to find out when he ever hits the field again, and for those who don't know, since he is being put on IR now with this move, how long does he have to be out and when can he come back?
Good point. Yeah. So they put him in as designated to return, which you could do with two players at roster cut day. They did it with the one. So it's not a season ending IR situation. It's a short-term IR situation. So he'll be on IR for 4 games and then he can come off and return to practice. He would then have a 3-week practice window to basically say, all right, I know the playbook. I'm healthy. I'm ready to go. I'm in football shape, all these other things. So you're looking at a 4-week gap. No matter what, he's going to miss the first 4 games. And then we'll see how long it takes for him to be able to get back out on the field after that.
Yeah, so he could be week 6 for the Chiefs, week 7. I forget who they play. It might be a bye week after that, but that time frame, mid-October, late October, that could be a time frame for him.
Earliest possible game would be against the Chiefs week. I think it's week 5, right?
Week 5, maybe. You might be right.
Is that right?
I mean, they all start running together, Ross. I don't know. It's
Man,
October
I'm with
7th
you. I'm not trying to. I wasn't trying to correct your call out. No, like that.
Of course not.
But that would be the earliest I think that he would get would be that week 5 game.
Yeah,
after the Falcons game. Whoever the heck they play after the Falcons game.
Yeah,
it's that Chiefs game week 5. Yeah,
it is. That's Monday night. So do the mathing. Yeah, because the whatever team, Atlanta's the September 28th game. I know that.
Yep.
Look, we try to just live a day at a time here, a week at a time, maybe when we cover this team, because we just don't know what we're going to walk into tomorrow. But, interesting question here. And we got a couple of them. I just want to grab a couple here. The question was asked of Dennis Allen, are they intentionally getting younger? But the fact is more undrafted rookies made this team. More rookies made this team, I think. And they did go younger in a lot of positions. And I'm not saying this is all Lou Headley, but you picked a guy that was 31 and you went with way younger. So that's obviously going to boost your average up a good bit. But a lot of positions, they did go with the younger players, and guys like Anthony Orji, who was a rookie last year, second year. I think that's and Jordan Mims is a second year player. I mean, there's a lot of younger players on this roster. Is that the direction that they're trying to go in, being in fairness of the question, or is this just kind of by chance? This is how it happened.
I think a part of it too is just the nature of their salary cap situation, right? Like they didn't get to be big players in free
Yeah.
agency. And so a lot of their new acquisition for talent had to be done through the draft and undrafted free agency and young free agents and things like that. Like that's just kind of the way that they had to go this offseason. They still have 8 players over the age of 30 who are all starters on their roster. So they're not going to get too much younger on an average conversation, but having 6 of 7 draft picks, however many, but all but 1 draft pick make the roster, having 4 undrafted free agents make the roster. Yeah, that's going to help you a little bit, but I don't know that it was a concerted effort more than it was just like, this is the mechanism by which they had available to them to add talent to their roster, build to the draft, build through undrafted free agency, bring in young players. That's the way that they were going to have to do it this offseason. I think it's the way they're going to have to do it next offseason as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something similar then.
Yeah. I tend to agree. And here's my prevailing theory, because nobody asked, and this is what I think, because we've talked about Dennis Allen and Derek Carr being here next year. Like, I just, I don't want to make it seem or rain on people's parades and their hopes and dreams, but I just think if they can get to be a 10-win team, get in the postseason, win a wild card game, they're going to push all the chips in for the following year, because that's Tyron's last year, DeMario's last year, and Cam Jordan's last year. I'm not saying I'm right, but I could just see that happening where they say, okay, we got close with the roster. Now let's spend, let's add, let's do this, and let's try to make a push for a Super Bowl. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying they have the players to do it. I'm not saying they have the coaching to do it, but I could see this as a likely course of action. I'm just saying. But the youth is certainly going to help them for a future, because guys like Pete Warner are going to be a cornerstone for this defense in the next couple of years. So, I mean, it does matter. What's your thoughts on Lewis Seen? I might be saying his name wrong.
Yeah. I do that all the time. I can't remember, but yes, I think that's one guy. First of all, I think the Saints waiver spot is going to be way too low for them to end up getting him, but I think they should absolutely put a claim in on him. I think he's such a talented player, was a very talented player coming out of college, has been a talented player in the NFL as well. I'm actually surprised. I think it's Minnesota that moved on from him. I was actually surprised that they moved on from him. And I think he's a really talented guy. So as long as everything checks out and he wasn't moved on from for some reason that we don't know about yet, then I think that's one of the few players that I would say that hit the market today to where I'd be like, go see if you can get that guy, because that would make sense to me.
Yeah. And there's going to be waiver claims. There's going to be all this stuff. I mean, it's going to be this is only part 1 of the fun. Like, now it's who's available. Who do we want to target? Do we put in waiver claims? Who we're putting on the practice squad? Who do we need to replace? All that stuff is happening. Like, when we left, they're still in the building. Like, they're all day there, and they're going to probably be there through the night too. Quick one. What do you think about Martavius Bryant? I think the wide receiver room, because I see here a question about Cedric Wilson being okay, but hand in hand, a Martavius Bryant.
I will say the same
thing.
Or
a trade for John Mechie.
I'm very pro Mechie. I don't care how good your wide receiver room is. I'm very pro Mechie. I wouldn't move but a late day 3 pick to get him.
Right.
Because that's the value of these players right now. At this point, player value is low. But I'm pro Mechie. I will say with Martavius Bryant, the same answer that I have said, John, for the last 3 years. He hasn't taken an NFL snap or recorded an NFL statistic since 2018. That's all I need to know. And it sucks what happened to him, Martavius Bryant, by the way. Absolutely got boned. Like, that should not have happened to him. It stinks the way that his NFL career panned out. But unfortunately, at this point, I think his playing career is behind him, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a point. I mean, you got guys, not to bring up past wins, but Michael Thomas is not on an NFL team right now. I mean, there's just certain things that happen throughout the course of it. La'el Collins was released. I mean, I think this is the thing that happens is that every player, especially name brand players that become available, the Saints should go get them, or the Saints should be interested. La'el Collins, I mean, he's an older guy. I mean, maybe he fixes the right tackle spot. I don't know necessarily, but I mean, do they need to look there, or are they going to try to get younger that fits the system? That'd probably be the more important thing. Does Lyle Collins fit the system the Saints are trying to run?
Yeah, and I don't think that he does. I think the majority of what he has done has been in drop back passing offenses, Dallas, Cincinnati, all that. Like that has been kind of what he's been doing. And so for me, looking at how he fits the system, I don't know that he fits it. So that would be my big concern there. But I think that the Saints will still be looking at offense.
I think Ross cut out, but things happen. We're live, and so stuff happens, and so we'll just roll with it. And when Ross comes back and rejoins us, because somebody clearly sabotaged his technology out there, I kind of hear semblances of him. I don't know. I kind of hear you in and out and stuff, but it's all good. Look, these things happen. This is why we do this thing, and what happens. I think I hear you now. You're good.
Okay.
You good?
All right. I think it's doing that thing.
Ready?
Remember that time? Are you ready? Are you ready?
Are you with me?
Remember that time we were getting ready to do a show and then my mic kept cutting off? Like it would work for a little while and then it would cut out. I think it was doing that thing again. So sorry.
Yeah, it happens. You know what you get with this show. This is why you tune in, because we don't know. And we don't really care because we're just having fun doing this. So
we're just here to have fun with y'all. That's it.
Yeah, you're right. This is a quick one. Irv Smith at tight end. And again, an interesting name. I think they're good with what they got. Unless he comes to the practice squad and he's an upgrade over Michael Jacobson, but I think he has probably better aspirations. That's probably what I'd say there.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
He does have the connection with Clint Kubiak from Minnesota. I will plug that in, that there is like some familiarity there.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean active roster. It just means that there's familiarity there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of familiarity with a lot of things, and doesn't mean that that's the right move. Where can this team get better? I think this is kind of the question, because Hemisphere says offensive line. Totally agree. Yeah. Wide receiver group. I don't know. It depends
on the talent.
It depends on the talent. Also, if they're going to truly run the ball first, and Rashid Shaheed, which he's trending towards playing week 1, is what we should expect. And so now you're getting healthy back at that position. Safety group, obviously they got to figure out who's going to be with Tyron, but the depth behind them is shrug ? I don't know. You know what I mean? I think guys like Lawrence Johnson, Miller Bradford might find their way onto the practice squad, one of those guys. And then, Ugo Amadi could come back on the practice squad too. I mean, I think it's another one, but they're going to have to draft better in the future, I think. But what are positions that you're like, okay, then you really need to kind of address it besides offensive line, because that's a given.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of positions where the team could get better, could stand to get better. But looking at it realistically in terms of where they have the opportunity to get better with roster cuts, I would say offensive line. That's really kind of it. I don't think you're going to find a wide receiver out there that's going to give you a better projection than anybody. I wouldn't be surprised, actually. I didn't say this earlier, but I wouldn't be surprised, actually, that if the Saints found an offensive lineman that they wanted to bring in to add to their active roster, that in order to make room for that Mason Tipton might not be long for the initial roster, in which case you can try to sneak him through and then sign him back to the practice squad when everyone's not scouring the waiver wire as crazily as what it will be over the course of the next 24 hours. We see that all the time, to where a team will hold on to a player and then try to sneak them through waivers at a later time. And so I could see, that happening. So the Saints might end up actually with fewer wide receivers in the next couple of days than they actually have on the roster right now, and going down from 6 to 5. So I could see a lot of things happening at wide receiver. What I don't see happening is anybody that's available on the market right now actually being a better option for what they have. I think not getting to see a lot of Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed during the preseason, not being able to see a lot of Rashid Shaheed during training camp, has kind of soured people on what this wide receiver group looks like, because they're thinking about Kevin Austin Jr. and they're thinking about Equinemius St. Brown and these other guys that didn't make the roster but have an opportunity to come back to the practice squad. And so they're kind of caught up a little bit in like what they saw in the preseason game, which isn't really representative of what this wide receiver group looks like. And so if you can find a wide receiver that's actually better than the guys, that's a better fit, all that other stuff, great. But until you actually have that, I couldn't see this team changing folks over just for the sake of changing folks over.
Yeah, I see Donovan Peoples-Jones in here. I see Tim Patrick. I was high on Tim Patrick a couple of years ago, but I just don't know. You know what I'm saying? I just don't know if you're going to do all that other stuff. And so, it's tough to say. Before I get one more of these questions, and then we'll get close to getting out of here. Brian asked if we're going to be at the Atlanta game. We're getting a lot of requests. I think, we got petitioned to do another live show in Los Angeles when the Chargers play. I don't know about Atlanta, but I mean, if enough of our supporters say they want to meet, we could try to look at something. I don't know. I'm on board and stuff, but Brian, you're going to have to help us out there, I guess, is what I'd say is, whatever the Saints or the Houdat chapter over in Atlanta is like, we can maybe look at that, but that's a good one. I mean,
there's a New Orleans themed restaurant, like walking distance from the stadium over by the Hard Rock Hotel. I can't remember what it's called, but that's okay. I'm not giving it free advertising anyway, but I think that they're owned by the same people that own some restaurants down here. So maybe there's an opportunity there. I don't know, but there might be a better option too. I just don't know. I don't know Atlanta that well.
Yeah, for sure. I know one place I was at, they had the best soul food I think I've ever had in a long time. So, but again, no free product placement on here. Sorry, y'all. St. John Butler brings up a good point. I think the Jimmy Graham chatter is probably over. I think he's focused on other things right now. I think Crowley got the answer there, so I don't think there's too much. I think the last thing that we will address, then we'll get out of here, is Swamp Billy asked if we'd address Trevor Penny.
Great question.
So as of right now, he's a team starting right tackle. Let's start with, what did you see from him in the Titans game?
I saw some good stuff from him in the run game. I saw some good plays in the passing game, but overall still concerned. I didn't see the improvement in the passing game that I think you really wanted to see in terms of, continuing development there, continuing growth there, continuing improvement there. Dennis Allen spoke very highly of him after the game. Now, Dennis Allen is a head coach in the NFL. He's a defensive coordinator. He is smarter than I am when it comes to these things. So maybe I just missed it, but I didn't see the same thing that was being described. And I think, look, I'll borrow from John Stitchcomb, former New Orleans Saints offensive lineman, who was on Matt Moscona's show not too long ago, AFR, and mentioned that he saw improvements from Trevor Penny, but still isn't necessarily seeing starter caliber play from him. However, he hasn't seen starting caliber play from any of the other right tackles that have been in there either. And so Trevor Penny is going to be the best bet. And I think that that's kind of where things still are with him. And then you're hoping that he'll develop under live bullets, which is an opportunity that he didn't get last season. So I'll give it that.
Yeah, which is why I brought up in this show earlier that, again, a few days ago, I was told that they are looking. And again, looking is one thing. Will they pull the trigger and do something? I don't know. And even if they do bring in somebody, even if it was like a Lyle Collins or whoever it might be, they still got to learn the playbook. They still got to be up to speed. And maybe it's a better contingency plan than they had to begin with. I don't know. But I think there is major concern there with Trevor Penny, whether they want to admit it or not. I think they feel good about Lucas Patrick. And I think they feel really good about Taliesin Fuanga. Right tackle is the issue right now. And again, I hope Trevor puts it together. I hope he does well. We're going to find out really quickly against Carolina, and then it's not going to get any easier because he's got Dallas right behind him and he's got Philly. So if it doesn't work quick, it's going to be pretty ugly, and he might have to pull the Sean Payton. I've seen enough. You know what I mean? Like, that's what happened to Charles Brown, all those years ago. Right. So, at any rate, well, time flies, Ross, and we always have a great time on here. But it's about that time to say goodbye. I know we got a lot of people here, and we appreciate you all tuning in and stuff, and y'all just make it so great, and we'll get our flow down for how we're going to tackle the regular season and stuff, all that soon. You might see some solo stuff from me and all that. But, Ross, what's coming up at Locked On, and what's coming up at LouisianaSports.net?
Yeah. So this next episode that I'm going to record right after this, because today just doesn't stop, for tomorrow morning, is going to be all around kind of take a look at where the Saints, some of the stuff that we talked about here, right? Like, where do the Saints go next in terms of where space that they can continue to add? What are some of the crafty things that they can do, utilizing some of the roster move mechanisms that they would be able to use? Because look, if there's a mechanism to take advantage of, the New Orleans Saints are going to be a team to take advantage of them. We're also going to take a look at a couple of other just kind of like bits and bobs, little notes throughout the roster. So we'll get into all that. And then over at Louisiana Sports, whole bunch of stuff from the stories and everything today. I have key insights and quotes for you from Dennis Allen tomorrow morning. And in addition to that, additional coverage throughout the day with any additional moves. What you got coming up, bud?
Well, it was a busy day, so I was we all were working our tail off. I did just put out something on Saints News Network, Saints on Sports Illustrated, that went back and I definitely checked and saw what my projection of the roster was August 22nd, and then looked at where I missed and where things go. So check that out. And then we're going to see kind of going forward. I think there's some good interest stories now that we can see. You know, it's practice squad, so stay tuned for that practice squad tracker. All that information is going to come out. But once we kind of get past this week, it's definitely week one mode. But until then, the roster's kind of this fluid situation. So, and then that's why I brought that up, like getting some interest stories. Like, there's stories to be told on Dallin Holker, stories to be told on Rico Payton. There's stories to be told about a lot of these guys on this roster. So that's kind of where I'm going to put my time and energy and effort into. So I can't wait. William brings up a great point. Don't forget to smash the like button. We really appreciate that, guys. I do want to also, guys, I don't want to always, but Foco has been a great supporter of our show. And I kind of mentioned this loosely the other day, but there is a Snoopy bobblehead that I am going to end up giving away to one of our subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, make sure to do that. But it is a Saints themed one, and just definitely want to give them some love. Don't forget to check the links below. Visit that link. Use SNN10 to get 10% off your first purchase. So stay tuned. We will figure out a way to give out away this Snoopy bobblehead, which is dope.
It's awesome.
So that's the marketing side of things really quick. But
that does it for the marketing segment of today's show.
Yes, that does it for the marketing segment of today's show. Thanks for tuning in. All right. Well, guys, again, thank you as always. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. I'm sure if anything happens, we might come back for the practice squad stuff. We might do something quicker on that one, just kind of give our thoughts, especially if anything big happens as far as movement and stuff. But until that next time, don't forget to like, subscribe, check us out on the pod, take us on the go. And then if you see us out and about, like Ross always says, say hi. We're friendly. We don't bite. We love meeting people, and we love to talk shop. So can't thank you guys enough. That is going to do it for another episode of Second and Saints. You guys have a good one, and stay good people.
Love you.
Growing your business can mean big-time logistical questions, like how are we going to keep up with all these local deliveries? Let Uber Direct offer you a helping hand. With Uber Direct, you take orders on your website, app, or by phone. Then drivers who are part of Uber's courier network pick them up from your store and deliver them to your customer's doorstep. Sounds simple, right? Uber Direct helps you give your customers what they want when they want it. Offer them delivery options in under 2 hours, on the same day, or scheduled up to 30 days in advance. Plus, share real-time tracking and ETAs by text. You can keep growing your business at a price that works for you. Never pay commission or hidden charges. Just pay a fixed fee per delivery. Delivery just got better with Uber Direct. Learn more at uberdirect.com.
This message comes from our sponsor, Teladoc Health. There are lots of reasons for wanting to be healthy. Family, work, living a fuller life. Teladoc Health understands. Whether you have diabetes, high blood pressure, or just need to manage your weight, Teladoc Health can help. Visit teladochealth.com/what's your why for more information. That's TELADOC health/what's your why.